still plans to send more resources to the southern U.S. border. Missouri Capitol Bureau Chief Joe McClain reports from Jefferson City.
Even though the press conference was postponed, Governor Parson still plans to send more resources to the southern border. Our question for his administration today is, what exactly is the impact of migrants on the state of Missouri? We asked the governor that question, and a spokesperson for Parson's office said, quote, "Until the governor announces his plan, we will not be commenting." My next stop was the Missouri Department of Public Safety. According to a spokesperson, the agency doesn't track the number of migrants in Missouri, nor any information on the immigration status of those convicted of crimes in the state. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, the likelihood of an immigrant being incarcerated is 60% lower than that of a natural-born citizen.
Statistics have shown that migrant communities and even communities of undocumented migrants are actually safer places than places with native-born folks.
Parson and other Republicans have also blamed undocumented immigrants for rising rates of fentanyl-related deaths. But the data shows roughly 9 out of 10 fentanyl seizures and convictions involve U.S. citizens coming through legal points of entry. Parson still plans to deploy state resources and personnel to Texas, but there are already roughly 250 National Guardsmen from Missouri patrolling the southern border. 2 of the state's National Guard companies have been federalized, meaning they're taking orders from the U.S. Department of Defense, doing mostly ground and aerial surveillance, not part of Texas Governor Greg Abbott's Operation Lone Star. 2 Missouri House Republicans have filed resolutions supporting Governor Parson's aim to send more troops to the border, but neither cited any direct threat that migrants pose to Missouri, and neither responded to my request for an interview. In Jefferson City, Joe McClain, WGEM News.